So today we need to move into the trimming part of our process of our blocks and putting together a quilt top in whatever fashion you decide. So we'll go through some of those options today. We need to get our blocks from this with all of its not quite complete edges and odd looking shapes, and we need to get them into a form that looks like this, all neat and tidy on our edges, and they all measure up the same. All of my blocks measure the same. For each of us, that is going to be a totally different measurement for the most part. Okay, it all depends on how you constructed your blocks, where you're starting from, where it will dictate where you're going to finish at size. One of the most important things about squaring up, which is a term we use in quilting to get our blocks in the right size and shape that we need, one of the most important things for this block is that our tree trunks are exactly vertical. Okay, they are perpendicular to any cross seam that we might use when we're putting this quilt together. If I took my ruler and simply found a placement that works and started just trimming off those edges, my tree trunk might be a little slanty. Okay, well, it would just drive me nuts. My tree trunks aren't going straight up and down. So that is a priority for you. The rest of it, we make it work. We make it fit. So it doesn't matter if I have, for instance, I have 10 1/4 inches that I could take to that point, but I need to take into consideration that I have a shorter edge here, right? So that measurement doesn't work for me. And then I also have to make sure that my tree trunks are perpendicular. So I'm going to line up my tree trunks right on a registration mark on my ruler and play with that and see where my my block is ending up. So what I did was I took one of each color because as some of you have already told me that you had an easier time with one group than you did with another, or things changed and morphed as you worked through your project. And I did too, you know, I mean, things seemed to work better for my creams and my reds than they did for my greens. So I asked Bev, which ones did you cut first? And she said, oh yeah, the ones I had the most trouble with. So it was a process, you know, in learning what you were doing as you went through the whole project. So I would look at this, and a couple of things I did was I found a mark that worked for me on one side of the trunk on all of my blocks. And for me, that was 4 inches from the edge. And I know you're all looking at me and going, wait, there's all that room on that side. But I might take my white block and discover that I needed to be on that 4-inch line for my tree trunk because it was all skewed in a different direction. And I needed to make the measurement work for all 3 colored blocks.
Oh, like, look at that.
I know. But that's
those green tape marks.
Yes, okay. So once I decided what my measurement was, it was very different. It's not a natural measurement of my block. My block size came out to 9.5 wide, which not so strange, 14 inches long. But I wanted to make sure that, again, I had this on the 4-inch line. And then I tried to figure out, I picked one other registration mark in my ruler so that I would know I'm keeping the trees somewhat symmetrical, okay? And that registration mark for me was the point of this top triangle of my tree. And it's approximately at the 2-inch by 3-inch mark on my ruler. So I took some tape because I'll tell you, if when you're working with measurements that aren't typical, where, like, for instance, we have 12.5-inch blocks, we have 6.5-inch blocks square, we have things that are becoming embedded in our memory because we are quilters and we are working with standardization. this is not standard. So I took some tape and I marked on my ruler the 4-inch line that was my trunk line, okay, for perpendicular. I put a little piece of tape where that 2x3 was on my ruler, and that's where, now, are they all exactly at the point of 2x3? No, but they are in that vicinity. Okay.
Did you
Yeah.
ever think you'd hear Val say that?
Very fun. Okay, yeah. But we are working with imperfections in this block, are we not? You know, yeah. Because of the whole bias edge thing and working with really odd angles. So I put those marks on my ruler, and the last marks I put on were that my block is 14 inches long, okay, and 9.5 wide. So what that helped me do was trim these up really fast, because I could lay my ruler, and you're going to need at least a 12.5-inch ruler square or a 15 to do it's easiest. Let's put it that way. It's easiest if you have these larger sized rulers. Can it be done with others? Absolutely. It just requires you to pair up some rulers and make them work. And if you need to do that, I will help you through that process, okay? So we put the 4-inch, I put the 4-inch on my trunk. I want my straight trunk. I look up here and I go, yeah, wow, pretty darn close. I'm happy with that. I want to look at my 9.5 inches wide. I am good all the way down the line. I have a good line here. Does it look crooked? Yeah, it does. It does. But we're going to go from this to this. Nice, square, nicely trimmed, neat and tidy, and it doesn't look out of place at all, right? It only looks bad when you have your ruler on it. So get your ruler off as fast as you can. Okay. I also have a lot of extra at the bottom. That's okay, because every one of my trees is going to be cut in exactly the same fashion. So my trunks aren't going to look, some aren't going to look shorter in comparison to others, because I'm staying within that, this mark for the vertical measurement, and I'm staying on the 4-inch line for my side to side, my horizontal measurement, okay? All right. I like to cut 2 sides at a time. As you know, when I'm squaring up a block, I go up one side, and this is a long distance. 14 inches is a long distance. Get your hand right in there hard. Okay, you can take off the side, and then I actually move my hand up, walk my fingers, and go across the top. Okay, so I've got 2 sides trimmed. I need to rotate this block all the way around, so I now have 2 raw edges again. I don't have to know all of my registration points anymore, because I have my registration is my 2 sides that I just cut. So I'm going to lay my ruler on. I've got my 9.5 inch marked. My 14 inch is marked. Make sure that those measurements are on the fabric, not...
So your 9.5 is here.
Yes, yes. I put my tape mark
underneath.
Yeah, inside the block. So you see, I'm going to cut a lot off that bottom edge. But it was the best measurement fit for every block in my groups, okay? And do you know that by doing it the way that they were going to have us make it, we were going to cut very much bigger pieces for our project. And it was supposed to be 9 by 14, and here we are. So, and all we did was add seam allowances to that reduced size of pattern. Okay, up one side. This one hurts. I know it hurts, but we're going to do it. Across the bottom. And I have what looks like I did a perfect job of putting this block together. What are the issues with this block right now? Oh, yes, sir. Yes. All of that work we did to put some of our pieces on grain, very important for us in the piecing process. It really helped us do the best we could do with our project. But now I've just cut off most of those on grain edges. So this is weaker. in its construction at this point, but I'm not going to pick it up and stretch the heck out of it. I'm going to gently place it down on the table, and I'm going to move on to the next one. So let's do this one. Look at this. I mean, it's kind of wonky, even.
Not as
All
long
right,
as mine.
but I've got my ruler marked, so I'm going to go straight to the 4-inch mark on my trunk. Okay, nothing new there.
Wow.
I'm going to drop that 2 by 3 inch to the corner of that tree, and this one kind of works, right? It's almost right on there. I'm going to check my outside measurements. I've got 9.5, just made it in that corner, but I'm good everywhere else. Okay,
Right here.
so because I have room, I'm going to just pull that down a bit, but not a lot. I have left 1/8 of an inch open, and that's fine. Okay, that's going to work for me in my final.
So by doing that 4-inch and this,
Yeah.
then you know that this is the top.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that the top edge of my ruler is the extent. These are now the edges of my block on this side. Okay, so I can cut this. Now I'm going to turn this around and do the other 2 sides. And it looks like it was meant to be. Exactly 9.5.
Will you be so lucky?
Yes.
Just gonna say, I'll pay you to trim 30 of them for me.
How many did you have to measure to get your measurements?
I measure maybe at least 2 or 3 from each pile, just to see how my my construction was going. And mine were very similar. All of them were very similar. But
Of course they were.
no, but there were areas where, I mean, you can just see from what I cut away here, there were spots where, look at, I mean, the edge of the upper piece was much smaller than that one, right? So, but they all kind of came out the same. They all had. Okay, so there's
Mine might be
two.
real short.
And look how much trunk I cut off of this one in comparison to how much I cut off of that one.
My trees might be laying on the ground.
So there's 2, and here's, I got a red one. I
Stand
kept
this
one of
long.
each just to prove that the construction did change for me as well throughout the process. So 4 inches on my trunk, the 2 by 3 up near the tip of the tree, and again, I'm just barely cutting off a little bit, but as long as those trunks are perpendicular and the block is trimmed with the tree in the same sort of center-ish part of your block, you're going to be happy. Once you trim all these, you're going to just love them. They're going to look like something that you can truly be happy with. Okay, on this, I'm using my measurement of the full block to lay my ruler down.
That's a good idea with the tape though.
Especially when you're
That's a
working
good
with
idea. Yeah.
with sizes that aren't typical.
Yeah.
Okay, and across.
You mean typical as in a 2 by 3 block or?
Yes,
Okay.
you know, we're used to measurements. Usually an unfinished block has a 1/2 inch around it because we need that for seam allowances. So I have a 9.5 inch measurement here, but it's by 14. You know, that's different for us when we're working with our blocks. So there's the red one, and it looks all neat and tidy, and it looks just exactly the same as the others, even though they trimmed quite differently.
It's beautiful.
So then you're going to take, oh, excuse me. Actually, Julie, let's do this.